what is a cancer vaccine? Can we really cure cancer with a vaccine?
So what a cancer vaccine is basically an approach which does appear to be quite science fiction, where we work out what's abnormal in a patient's cancer and develop a vaccine so their immune system can start to target that cancer itself. The exciting thing, Susie, is it's a personalised approach for it. That cancer vaccine is made specifically for that patient. So what we need to do to make a cancer vaccine is just pick 20 of them and put them into a vaccine vial we should give to a patient to activate the immune system. Each cancer's got about 10,000 differences from a normal cell. So you've got to pick 20 abnormalities out of 10,000. And that's a problem that actually AI is fantastic at. It's using algorithms to predict it. When you think about it, this is a problem that's been solved by one of the greatest companies in the world. Amazon knows of all the products they want to sell, what does Susie and Lennard want to buy based on past purchases and who it thinks you are. So we're doing exactly the same in terms of the cancer vaccine world, picking which of those 10,000 are most likely to work in a cancer vaccine.
I was attending a really interesting talk on supercomputers recently where I was shocked to hear that all of the hours that you could spend on these supercomputers, less than 5% of it was going to healthcare research. And that seems minuscule considering how healthcare affects every single one of us, doesn't it?
Less than 5% is not great, is it? And actually, I think 95% goes to the defense industry, autonomous weapons. That has to change. People are scratching their heads saying, well, we've got this compute capability, it's limited, what should we focus it on? Should it just be defense? Should it just be energy? Should it be around global warming? Well, I think a danger to the world is if AI is only controlled by
Welcome back to another episode of Rethinking Intelligence with me, Professor Susie Shelmerdine. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Lennard Lee, who is a clinical oncologist, and here to talk to us about what he thinks about rethinking intelligence. Welcome, Lennard.
Thanks, Susie. I really appreciate inviting me here today. It's very kind of you, and I can't wait to dive into the session.
Oh, amazing. You're the first oncologist we've had on the show, so I'm really excited to talk to you about what AI means to you. The first question we ask is the same one to absolutely every guest, and that is, what do you think we need to rethink when it comes to AI in healthcare?
God, Susie, that's a big question, actually. I think we've really got to take a step back and look at what's happened in the last 2 to 3 years, because I don't think we've seen a situation where how people communicate, how people think, how people work, have been transformed so radically as in the last 3 years. Even when I'm doing my ward rounds now with junior doctors or even medical students, how they're learning is completely changed. It's much, much faster now. Information is at people's fingertips, and actually they're able to reason using AI tools in a way I've never seen before. I'm even seeing this in my lab too, where my PhD students are achieving what's in 3 months what were previously taken a year. Now that is a great opportunity. And actually as a cancer researcher, that is a real potential for us to make people with a diagnosis of cancer's lives much better.
Oh, fantastic. I can hear the huge optimism in your voice, and it sounds amazing. You talked about clinical, about labs, about teaching. It sounds like you've got a lot of different aspects to your job. But first of all, tell us, why should we listen to you? Like, what do you have that you bring to the conversation here?
So Susie, I'm just willing to try. I didn't really see the opportunity of AI until I got to grips with it. And I started to ask it bigger and bigger questions here. How much data can you handle? Are you looking at like 100,000 data set or 1 million data set or 100 million data set, or where we are now, where we're looking at data sets of 500 million going above, and it's still being able to analyze that data in a really, really fast timescale. And on top of that, I guess we've also got a great opportunity in the UK because we are one of the leading nations in this space now. The government has been investing in supercomputers, so I've got to grips in terms of doing that, and we've launched a project called the UK Cancer Vaccine AI Scientists and Supercomputing Project. And for the first time, we are able to lead in terms of making cancer vaccines using AI to make safer, more effective and more precise cancer vaccines.
Oh, wow. Well, let's get into that in a second. But first of all, tell us a little bit about your job title and where you're from and what you've done in the past to get you to this really exciting opportunity.
So I'm a medical oncologist. So my job is to see people with cancer, normally incurable cancer, and get them the drugs they need to buy them more time. I'm really excited about my role as a doctor because in the last 10 years, we've realised actually some people can go into long-term remission from their cancer, living beyond 5-10 years. And there's new drugs coming through like immunotherapies, which has really started to make some people just have the cancer which almost disappears from the scan. So that's truly transformative. So that's who I am. However, I'm also a clinician scientist like you. And that's a type of breed of doctor which isn't just looking at the here and now, what drugs we've got to treat patients, but actually looking to the future. What's the next generation drugs which has come through? So that's me. I've had previous government roles. You asked me about national clinical lead, pushing cancer vaccines, and I've worked in government before that, and as well as NHS England.
Wow, such a wealth of knowledge. So you mentioned about cancer vaccines several times. What is a cancer vaccine? Can we really cure cancer with a vaccine? Like, I know we've heard of cervical cancer being, vaccinated against. I'm sure many people in viewing will have possibly even had that vaccine themselves, but what else is there?
So there's a lot of hope at the moment in terms of the next generation of cancer therapies coming through. We all thought it was just about chemotherapy, radiotherapy and surgery. And then we started to get targeted agents. However, in 2020, everything changed. I didn't think I'd be sat in this seat here talking about the success of the United Kingdom. That Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine showed the world that actually within 1 year, you can develop a vaccine which then gave freedom to 1 billion people around the world. And it doesn't have to cost the earth at that stage. The legacy of all that research has been, well, actually, let's move the frontier forward now. Let's look at diseases and conditions that's going to affect 1 in 2 of us. Let's think about cancer. So what a cancer vaccine is basically an approach which does appear to be quite science fiction, where we work out what's abnormal in a patient's cancer and develop a vaccine so their immune system can start to target that cancer itself. The exciting thing, Susie, is that much of these vaccines nowadays, the really exciting thing that I get really excited about is the personalised approach for it. So that cancer vaccine is made specifically for that patient. That's where all the research interest is at the moment. It's really exciting to talk about it.
That's amazing. So I think there might be some misconceptions about what that means. A few things. You mentioned personalised. Every cancer could be slightly different depending who has it and what their genetic makeup is and how it's affecting their body. And secondly, do you have to have had cancer already in order to have a vaccine for it? Because you think of vaccines as preventative rather than curative. So how do you use AI to, treat cancer then?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what's the role of AI? Well, each cancer's got about 10,000 differences from a normal cell. We call them mutations. Immunologists call them neoantigens. And so what we need to do to make a cancer vaccine is just pick 20 of them and put them into a vaccine vial we can give to a patient to activate the immune system. So you've got to pick 20 abnormalities out of 10,000. And that's a problem that actually AI is fantastic at. Initially, it was hard before we had AI. But when you think about it, this is a problem that's been solved by one of the greatest companies in the world.
Yeah.
Amazon knows of all the products it wants to sell, what does Susie and Lennard want to buy? It's using algorithms to predict it based on past purchasers and who it thinks you are. So we're doing exactly the same in terms of the cancer vaccine world, picking which of those 10,000 are most likely to work in a cancer vaccine.
And could this be for any cancer, or are there very specific ones that you think would work best with this?
So this approach, where you look at the mutations in the cancer and design a vaccine for it, can be done in any cancer where there's a mutation.
Okay.
So potentially this has got widespread applicability across the board, any different cancer type. That's what we're testing at the moment.
Wow.
And we've trained it on 33 tumour types just to make a better AI model. So what's an AI model? Well, you know about ChatGPT 5.2 or 5.3 or maybe 5.7 by the time you listen to it. And we're basically doing exactly the same thing, building models to make better cancer vaccines.
Do any currently exist?
So this is a really interesting thing. A cancer vaccine is a personalised approach to immunise your body to recognise cancer. They are going through trials very, very quickly now. So the first phase 3 study has now completed recruitment. What does that mean? Well, you got 3 stages of the trials before a drug is proven.
Yeah. Phase
1, phase 2, phase 3. One's already out the other side, just over 5 years from the start of the pandemic, using mRNA technology. That's phenomenal. So there's now pipelines of products coming through, horses in the race trying to get to the end points. And then actually, I think the major leap in this field is going to happen from AI because it'll make much more precise vaccines.
That's amazing. So how do you know if the vaccines worked or not? Like would you have to recruit people already with the cancers and then see that the cancer completely disappears? Or are you hoping for just remission? Or are you looking at a total cure? What are you aiming for?
Yeah, so what does success in cancer treatment look like? Well, for me, if I were to, when we move this forward and start to design clinical trials, for me it's, have we bought people more time? Are they living much longer than before? I think that's a great success. But there's other things along the way too. Did it shrink the tumour? Did the tumour disappear completely? Did it cause an immune response? All these things need to be measured. However, I think ultimately everyone's trying to get to a point whereby we say, did people live longer? How many more months or years did it buy? That's the real game changer we want to try and get to.
Yeah, I would love a world without any cancer at all. Maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. Maybe you would, but you'd be out of a job. But it would be wonderful not to have, cancer being such a big part of our lives. I mean, we all know someone who's affected by it and people who have left us because of it, and not in very pleasant ways, unfortunately. So having something like this could be such a game changing. Is there like a time where you would give this vaccine? I mean, would some people be too far down the line that this wouldn't work? Or are you hoping that anybody, anywhere with any cancer at any stage would be viable for this?
Yeah, so Susie, the technology exists. So you can sequence a cancer. That's a done thing. You can predict which should go into vaccine. We think we're doing that really well in the UK Cancer Vaccine AI Science and Supercomputer project, and we can make the vaccine. The question is now, where do you put that technology now that it exists?
Yes.
Now that it's already here because you've got all the supercomputers and AI scientists. If I put my thinking hat on, I'll probably say that making the jump to true prevention, giving everyone age 50 a vaccine across many different cancer types, I'm not quite sure we're there yet in 2026. Maybe as we move forward in time to 2030, I think we'll have the advances and learning as the AI models got a lot bigger to try and target that space. Where I think we are in 2026 is actually we should be able to go for patients where the cancer's been taken out. And those patients are the ones that I see every year, and they want to know what their scan shows because this scan could show whether the cancer's back again or not. And it's really frightening. It's just they have their scan, they wait a couple of weeks to get the results, and they're on edge. They don't know if their immune system's controlling it. They don't know if the cancer's got a spot in the back or in the lungs or liver. So it's possible in that scenario, that might be a really good one because we can activate the immune system. The white blood cells will go around patrolling for stray cells and hopefully control it. So I think that's a good group to go for. I also hope that there's another group too, which is maybe the surgeon can't get it out. Maybe it's spread in too many places. Well, can we get more control in that situation? Can we try and stop the cancer spreading anymore and maybe just freeze it down? So I'm talking about what we call medically stage 3 or stage 4 cancers, probably where you want to try.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, the elephant in the room is that we don't have everyone who likes vaccines, and we saw that with COVID as well. Have you had any pushback, or have people said, oh, that's all very well and good, but some of us would rather not have a vaccine, and trouble with that? There's the adoption piece as well in AI and vaccines as well.
Yeah, Susie, this is a good question here. In the UK, we are world leading in this space. We brought through pandemic vaccines in record times. And on top of that, the public understands this is about personal choice. If you have a diagnosis of cancer and you've run out of treatment options, we believe in the UK it's all right for you to put your hand up and say, I want to be part of clinical trials. I want to try cancer vaccines and see if it works because they learn from my experience will help patients after me. So it's a really altruistic thing. It's about personal choice. And that's really important. We're also seeing fantastic things which are happening now, which is that American scientists are now coming to the UK and want to do the research here. Because actually, there are many of us who now believe that vaccines are a cheap, simple technology that anyone can give in any country, which could help people with a diagnosis of cancer. They're trying it. So I'm going to turn this on its head. It's a great thing that's happening at the moment. Because we're so good at this technology, people want to come to these shores. We're often world leaders in terms of clinical trials. And actually, we're seeing the UK lead again in terms of vaccine research and pulling ahead of the world in terms of cancer vaccines.
That's amazing. And you filled me with so much optimism. I'm really hoping that by the time I reach an age where I might be more at risk of cancer, that something like this will be more widespread for us all. What kind of time frame do you think we're looking at? I know that's very hard to predict, but what do you think is the realistic situation in 5, 10, 20 years for this?
So timeframes, they're quite hard to predict, actually.
Yeah.
It's like a crystal ball where you can't see. You can't fully predict. But I would say medical research is the most fascinating thing. And if anyone wants to read into it, you'll really find actually the thing that dictates scientific discovery from a medical sphere is patients. If patients put their hands up at their cancer centre and say, I want to be part of a trial, and you recruit twice as quickly as you previously have done, then the trial goes twice as fast.
Okay.
And that's truly fascinating because it's like a bottom-up type of research. If you field is interesting, then the trials open and close quicker, and discoveries are made quicker. And we're seeing cancer vaccine trials open and close much, much faster than other trials, and then we'll get the results quick as a result of that. So we should be expecting advances in a few years rather than multiple years. 20 years is no good for people with cancer diagnosis now. People don't have that time.
No.
What I'm expecting is actually, because this field is going so well, we're looking at a few years in terms of this getting to be improving as long as this momentum continues.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you see any big side effects or any sort of downsides of using AI-generated vaccines, or are they just the same as any other vaccine? Like, are there specific things you would be worried about?
I think the AI is amazing because it's seeing patterns in big data sets. So ours is about 500 million data sets and above at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's seeing patterns that humans cannot see. And it's doing it in a much quicker time scale than humans can do, than we can even process. That's exactly what we need AI for, cancer research. What do I think the issues are? Well, we have been investing in supercomputers. So we've got one in Bristol, which is called Isambard AI. We've got one in Cambridge, which is called Dawn. They're opening new ones in Edinburgh too, which is amazing. And so we have the resources. We have everything we need to become world leaders in AI. However, I think we need to think about what do we need to use AI for? Because I know your podcast is all about medicine, and we as doctors believe that it should be medical research. But actually people are scratching their heads saying, well, if we've got this compute capability, it's limited, what should we focus it on? I think there's a lot of debate at the moment. Should it just be defense?
Yes.
Should it just be energy? Should it be around global warming? I come in here with a different viewpoint, which is I'm glad to share. We should be doing AI for all kinds of research, and we cannot leave the medicine by the side and only go with defense, energy, and global warming. We have to think about medical research too, because that is what will touch so many lives in this country.
I totally agree with you. And I was attending a really interesting talk on supercomputers recently where I was shocked to hear that all of the hours that you could spend on these supercomputers, less than 5% of it was going to healthcare research. And that seems minuscule considering how healthcare affects every single one of us, doesn't it? Why do you think that is? Is that the funding? Is it the interest? Is it people not aware of the fact we can access these tools? Why is that?
You're right. Less than 5%. Not great, is it? And actually, we're getting students coming through, really bright students at Oxford University, who are at the very leading edge of AI learning, and they're asking the questions themselves. I think 95% I'm more likely to succeed if I make autonomous weapons which can, for the defense industry, or 5% chance if I go with medical research. That has to change. We need to be using AI for the great discoveries, scientific discoveries that is possible in the UK, where we have genuine strengths here. And I think that's going to change over time. And maybe scientists like me need to shine the light on this, show that a supercomputer project in cancer vaccine works, then we'll then stimulate cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, dementia. Everything will follow after that, but we do need success examples. So we're working really hard on this team to try and get this off the ground.
Great. Well, that sounds exciting. You mentioned earlier that you were interested in building an AI scientist. I know that we talked about how AI could be used in science to create vaccines, but what is an AI scientist? I mean, many of the viewers may think, oh, is that just using AI to do literature reviews or something? I'm sure it's more complex than that.
So AI scientist is a really, really exciting new idea. And it starts with the premise, what can AI do? How can it help humans? I think all of us knows that AIs can write an email for you. It can create a document. It might even act as your personal secretary now. So it's already helping us become more efficient. What an AI scientist is something that can make hypotheses, review the literature, review all the knowledge out there, design experiments, run an experiment, analyze the result and communicate it, and do that with as little as much human oversight as you need. So we're really excited to be trying to build the world's first cancer AI scientists from our funding with the Advanced Research and Invention Agency to try and make this a reality. And what does this look like? Well, I think what we're trying to do here is have a combination of an autonomous lab which can run itself. So currently our PhD students stay till 9 o'clock at night just pipetting really repetitive tasks. And we're asking the question now, can AI just take over and run that process for you and let our students think? We think that's the right thing to do here. On top of that, can it help them check all the papers out there? We think it can do that too. And can it help it analyze the results and make predictions? We think it can do that. We think that is the way how the UK succeeds in the world, because we're going to use technology for the right purposes to make our scientists reach the highest levels. I mean, we can use AI to make cartoons of ourselves, turn me into a plastic figurine and to make clones of myself to say different things. But actually, we can also use it for science, for medical research. And that's what the AI Scientist program is.
That sounds incredible. So I'm just thinking how that would actually look. Would that be AI agents that would do certain specific tasks that you would train them to do, but also AI and robotics to do the pipetting and various other things for you, and then automating that pipeline in some way?
We need to bring these fields together. You're quite right. There are fields which are not talking to each other. Science is happening in silos. For the first time, on this concept of AI science, we'll bring it together. So we need to bring together computational science, AI experts, robotics, doctors, and also medical researchers and cancer researchers. You put them all in the room and ask them, how would you use AI to make discoveries of tomorrow? That's where the magic is happening at the moment. And it's really exciting to see that actually all around the country, teams are now being stood up to try and answer this question for ARIA. It's brilliant actually seeing it happen.
That's amazing. That sounds amazing. Really good. So how far are you along with building this scientist?
So in December 2025, the call went out.
Right.
12 teams have to be stood up in the UK and around the world to make the world's first AI scientists. So ARIA put the call out. They got 455 applications, all the best teams from around the world. And you obviously know that America is going to be a little bit further ahead in the UK, but they picked 12 of them. So we're one of 12, along with other universities like King's, Liverpool, UCL. But there's also startup companies too, which are also in this space at the moment. And we're all racing to bring this out of the ground. So I think you can probably expect by autumn this year, not 6 months from when this podcast is going out in March, that you're going to have the first prototypes of how AI is being embedded into every aspect of the scientific process to speed it up. When that happens, science is going to go very fast.
Hear your enthusiasm, but I know there will be skeptics out there who will say, well, I've used an AI agent for my research and it missed out some of the key seminal papers and I had to go back and manually do it and search for it. How can we be assured that it knows everything? And if it's doing so many tasks for us, it would be really impossible to check that every single one of those is doing it correctly without slowing the whole process down, which then, circumvents the whole purpose of doing this really quickly. And so how would someone check that it's doing the right thing?
Yeah, this is a great question. How do we know it's working? How do we know it's accurate? And how are we going to do this thoughtfully, carefully, think about it? And actually, this is what's really good about what's happened in the UK. We're taking it step by step. We're analysing results, putting humans in loop very, very early on to check what it's doing every single step along the way. I think there's another big tech approach where just throw it out there, let people experiment, and let's not worry about the ethics and governance. Well, actually, the UK is already leading in this space. We've started to think about safety, ethics, governance, and actually we think probably at the moment there's going to be different layers of AI scientists. So probably level 5 is where you just say, I need you to solve global warming, go and do it. And it'll design the experiment, do it in labs, come up with a hypothesis and keep iterating. That's level 5 where it's fully autonomous. But we think level 1 is where we have to start and be careful with it. Check every bit of its thinking so we can learn from it and then try and improve that process. So a little tiny thing. We asked it to start doing immunology experiments, check whether the immune system of patients' blood is responding to the cancer vaccine we've designed. And it came up with the most fantastic experiment. It was brilliant. Absolutely a few bits of genius, many bits which we need to prove on, but actually the scaffold there was just wonderful. You know that in 3 to 6 months' time, we would have made discoveries which we would probably scratch our heads thinking about for 1 month, but this was within an hour. We got all these plans and we had to iterate on it. But it missed one crucial step, which is that in Oxford University, we hold research to the highest standards. When we take blood samples, we run it through ethics committees, and it knew nothing about Oxford ethics committees. It just said, go ahead and do the experiments. So, of course, everyone at Oxford knows the process. Our PhD students, our research assistants, our postdocs say, hang on a minute, hands up here. Where's the ethics step?
Yes.
So what we then did was we went back and trained that AI model, which we call Kira, Centre of Oncology Autonomous Research Assistant. And we said, Kira, hang on a minute. Forevermore, you must always remember when you're using human blood samples, you got to put the ethics check inside there to run it through Oxford Ethics Committee. And this is what you do. And we baked this in. Every experiment from now on will have an ethics check in there, which is really important. So it's little things like that it's got to learn, and we're doing this very carefully.
Oh, well, I'm glad you raised that, because I think it's a bit like having a person who's never been in a lab, never done science, and you're like teaching this little baby how to grow up and become someone like you, basically. But you really have to have that oversight and just have that sense check and not just trust it to do everything on its own, especially at these early stages. And I think earlier on in the interview, you mentioned something really important, which was human judgment, and how we've always got to have that at the back of our mind, because there are things we know about the world that the AI doesn't, because it's not, I don't know, written down somewhere that's very easy for it to access. But do you worry about whether or not human judgment might be a thing of the past if we outsource everything to the AI? I mean, you have it now because you've grown up with it, but would new students coming through know that process, or they just be like, well, just leave it to the AI? It's been trained over many years to know everything it needs to know now.
Yes, that's a really good question now. How do humans work with AI to get the very best of it? Because at the moment, I probably recommend no one just trusts AI completely and switch off. The value of being a human is your ability to think, your background, you know what's acceptable, you know what's important, and actually you'll think about that very carefully. So whenever we get our students coming through, we just say, don't blindly trust the AI. Think carefully, think critically, and be careful. I think as time develops, you can start to trust. There'll probably be an element of transfer of trust. So I'll just give you an example from all those years ago. When I spoke to my partner's father, they said that when calculators first came out, no one trusted them because everyone believed that there could be an error. And so everyone will bring a piece of paper with their calculator and just do long multiplication. I mean, we don't do that anymore. We just trust calculators. At some point, as we push the parameters of our AI model beyond 1 billion parameters, actually probably will be making very reliable predictions. And at that time point, we might be able to let it go. But I think you're right, early stage, you just got to be able to supervise it. We're not quite there in terms of its intelligence, but we could soon be.
That's amazing. And I was also curious, you mentioned that your students were now learning using AI in ways that you had never done in your own practice, and how they were assimilating lots of information that previously weren't accessible to them. Do you think that whilst we can speed up research, could we speed up medical training as well? Or is that a dangerous thing to really think about?
That's a really good question, actually. Well, Susie, you and me would walk around the hospital with books, and every time someone asked a question, we would struggle to find the answer, wouldn't we? We'll have to find the right book, find the right page, look at the index. It took a long time. All that information's now out there now. Another scenario is a fascinating one, which is that we had all these lectures, didn't we? And sometimes you'll hear a lecture, you didn't make any sense. You couldn't understand or connect with the speaker, and then you read the notes afterward, and it was just too confusing. They were talking like someone who's been in the field for 50 years. What our students are able to now is just take that transcript, put it into ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever tool you want to use, and say, please translate it to a 20-year-old student so I can understand the key points and how they got to this point. And it just translates it. It's really fascinating, actually, because learning becomes more efficient, and people can follow their interests in ways which we hadn't previously thought. So I think, yes, learning has become more efficient, whether we should be increasing the quality or shorten timescale needs to be debated by educationists. You need to have time to learn, but learning's completely changed in the last 3 years. It's phenomenal. Oxford University made it available to all students, all staff, and how everyone's now getting information, learning from it has changed completely.
Absolutely. I only ask that because, in radiology, as I'm sure in every other medical specialty, the two biggest challenges we have are increasing workload and reduced workforce.
Yes.
And so we either find ways to retain what we have, or we try to get more people in the system faster. And sometimes, or you use AI to replace some of those people, I suppose, or supplement them. And so, at every single point, you're wondering, how could this help? How could we shorten this? How could we maximize, squeeze every bit we can out of what we have? True. So I wasn't sure if that could be also thought about in oncology as well.
Yeah.
But obviously,
Susie, I want to go pick you up on a question about radiology, actually, because it's genuinely quite interesting to me. Because what I understand about radiology is that sometimes if a scan's normal, you can see that pretty quickly. And if an AI could do that for you and just say that this 90%, I'm pretty sure is completely normal, I wouldn't bother checking out these, but these are ones I'm not sure about, is that a good thing for us to have out there? Because it could almost reduce your workload by, quite a sizable amount.
Absolutely. I mean, if the performance is as good as we think it is from the literature and it works in the real world, I think, that would be amazing. Because, I think of it as a patient as well. If you go to a doctor and you're not sure and you've got a scan, and everyone knows it's completely normal, should you be left waiting 3 weeks to find that out whilst you're there really anxious? You want to get on with your life and just be like, okay, there's a 99.9% chance this is totally fine. Let's move on, right?
Yeah.
And if an AI can do that to a higher level than a human, which, the vendors say it can, then that would be an amazing thing to do. And as a radiologist, I want to see the cool, interesting, complex cases and challenge myself with that. There's obviously a lot of issues that people talk about. What happens to your ability to detect normals if all you ever see is an abnormal scan? Yeah. Will you lose that function to be able to determine right from wrong? That kind of thing is a big question in my field. And I don't know the answer to that. I think I have a bit of a warped sense of view on that because I work at Great Ormond Street, which is a very specialist hospital. So all I ever see are abnormals. So personally, I feel like, well, what's the problem with only seeing abnormals? That's what I do all the time. But I understand I'm in a center where that is supported, where I have people to speak to, where everyone's an expert, where that's the norm. If I didn't have that setup or the governance or the guardrails and I was in the outside real world, perhaps it might be much harder for me to make that distinction where I'm being called to make that judgment. So these are some of the questions in my field that we're really worried about and what that means for training.
Yeah. I mean, we're very lucky to be doctors because actually we're in a profession that is always at the vanguard of change. Medicine's always been changing. And I think that's what people don't fully understand. Before, we only used to have stethoscopes. Then we started to have scanners. Now we've got genomics, and now we've got AI. And actually, the job of doctors is to get the technology and always use it for the benefit of patients. And it's always evolving.
Yeah. I mean, what I find, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, is that I think AI brings up some really deep ethical questions for me as a doctor, and maybe you, from how you're speaking. I think both of us are citizens of the world. Humans everywhere should benefit from this, and everybody should have access to these great drugs and treatments and things like this. But then, as you say, there's also AI has this connotation of, we can't share it because it might share trade secrets, or what if one country has an AI that's built for them and they don't want to share it with somewhere else? And, you've spoken previously about sovereign AI, and I'd love to pick your brains about it. Should we be building our own AI for our own people? Should it be a global AI that helps everyone? What are the nuances and contexts we need to worry about in that sense?
Well, I think a danger to the world is if AI is only controlled by one country and you've ended up with a big monopoly and that could be turned off whenever. That's not ideal, is it? You want to be able to have lots of different options where you can always choose the best one and therefore the best one will win. So I think the concept that UK will build its own AI models and do it for science and for humanity is fantastic. I think we need to be very, very careful and thoughtful after that. And maybe think about what's happened before with the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. When we developed that, we didn't just keep it in the UK. We gave freedom to countries all around the world, African nation, the Americas, Asia. It was just technology was given and we saw great benefit. I think we can be very thoughtful when we develop our new cancer vaccine design tools or new models of science, that actually we consider this as gifts to the world, a legacy of our scientific advanced capability, and we use it thoughtfully and carefully. So I think that's really important. However, I think, going back to your point, we cannot be in a situation where only one country or even two countries, in fact, it might even be worse than that. What happens if only three, not countries, three companies controls all of the AI might in the world? If it goes to company level, then I think maybe we might have to be a little bit careful about how it's being used at that stage.
Yeah, and what if those three companies belong to one country? Like, then it really is one country, even if it's diverse in a sense. But what a thought, and that does worry a lot of people. But coming back to maybe the more optimistic side and going back to your AI vaccines, do you think there are different cultures or populations who might benefit more from this kind of technology? Let's say lower middle income countries, if we share this out, or is it more advanced countries like the UK, where maybe people are living longer to have cancer in the first place, who might benefit?
Well, the reason why I like the concept of cancer vaccines is because of the technology. Every so often technology comes through which is just much cheaper and easier, and the world knows it can deliver. So for vaccines, if I look at how much my drugs cost at the moment, and a vaccine which is a couple £100 to make, that's a major cost advantage there. And on top of that, we've sorted the problem in 2020, how to store the things, how to give it. So I think potentially a legacy, everything the world went through in 2020, is that we accelerated vaccine technology to the point where it's now cheap, easily available, and it can be used across many different subtypes, and it can be incorporated with AI. And that, I think, leads to global good, not global harm. This is a great opportunity here. It's a breakthrough technology.
That's amazing. Well, as we wrap up, I just want to ask you, is there anything that we haven't covered yet today that you'd like to say in the last few moments?
I think my closing message was that we should be in a position of hope in the UK because we have everything we need to succeed in terms of AI. We've got supercomputers, we've got great scientists, we've got purpose here, and actually I encourage anyone who's in this field to really think about how AI can help their medical research and focus it all onto patients, because we need to move from 5% research in AI and medicine up to at least 50% if we're going to make a big difference what we know we can achieve.
What a great way to close. Thank you so much for your time today. It was lovely chatting to you.
Thanks, Susie.